On today's episode, we'll be returning to the citizen hearing on UFO disclosure, as they continue their discussions on sightings, cover-ups, and cattle mutilations. These stories and more on this edition of Paranormal Mysteries. Thank you for joining me and welcome. I am your host, Nick Ryan. I hope you all have been having a wonderful week, and before we start today's episode, I'd like to thank all of you for your support and generosity. And if you haven't already, please consider following, sharing, and reviewing the podcast. This supports us by helping new listeners to find the show. You can also support us at patreon.com/paranormalmysteries or at buymeacoffee.com/paranormal. And if you'd like to share your paranormal encounter on the podcast, you can submit your story through email at paranormalmysteriespodcast@gmail.com, through voice message at speakpipe.com/paranormalmysteries, or on our website at paranormalmysteriespodcast.com. And all these links can be found in the show notes. Now let's get back to the citizen hearing as they discuss UFOs and associated phenomena.
To my colleague from the House, Mr. Bartlett. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you all very much for your testimony. Mr. Hazelton, you mentioned some concern expressed to you about the contribution of statistics.
Yes.
It reminded me when I was working on my doctorate, and that was a long time ago. I got it in 1952. I came in one morning and my major professor, Norman Phillips, said, "You know, Roscoe, there are 3 degrees of liars." I said, "Sir?" He said, "Yes, there are liars, there are damn liars, and there are statisticians." So that was his view of the problem. When I got home last night, my wife called me and she said, "There's somebody on the phone with a very heavy accent that wants to talk to you." So I went to the phone and it was somebody from the BBC. And they said, "We understand that you're involved in a citizens hearing in Washington, D.C. about extraterrestrials." And I said, "Well, that's not quite my perception when I accepted the invitation to come to be a part of this citizen hearing." And I thought to myself, this is a bit like the elephant and the 3 blind men. One of them felt its broadside and said, "Gee, this is a wall." Another felt one of the legs and said, "This has to be a tree." And another felt the tail and said, "This is a rope or a vine." And so what you think these hearings are about depends, I guess, upon your context and of your experience and what you had in your head when you came here. I knew before I came here that UFOs were a real subject. Unidentified flying objects. Even the Air Force, in their not very truthful fact sheet on closing down Project Blue Book, admitted that there were 701 unidentified. That's what a UFO is, an unidentified flying object. So even the Air Force admits that they're unidentified flying objects. My interview on the BBC last evening ended with my question: what are they? There's clearly something out there that cannot be explained as beams of light or swamp gas or hallucinations or anything. When more than one person sees it from different angles, when there is a radar track, this is real. This is not something that you can argue away. My hope is, as a result of this hearing, that the media will, even if they believe that this is all crazy, that everyone who believes in, now I believe in UFOs. I'm not quite there yet that they're extraterrestrial. Maybe that's because I'm a scientist, and I know that the closest possible place I'm told where there could be life is 37 light years away. What that means is, unless they have some way of communicating faster than the speed of light, it takes 74 years to ask a question and get an answer back. So obviously you can't be controlling something from that far away. Now, my forebears, not very long ago, since I am Anglo-Saxon, my forebears not very long ago were running around Europe in animal skins in a Stone Age. So I have to be pretty arrogant and presumptuous to believe that there isn't somewhere out there in this huge universe some civilization more developed than mine. And I note that we still have these stupid wars and kill each other. And there's got to be a civilization somewhere in this huge universe with 1 billion stars in our galaxy and 1 billion galaxies out there. There's the statistical probability that there is life somewhere else just has to be very, very high, doesn't it? I would hope that what comes of this hearing is that the press recognizes that here is an opportunity for some really interesting stories. There is reporting out there, and then after the reporting, what is the explanation of it? I'm sure the Air Force thought that they could explain away nearly 12,000 or 12,618 sightings. They explained away all but 701 of them. And there are a lot of sightings that, that are searchlights on clouds and that sort of thing. And so it would make very interesting press, I would think, to report these sightings and then to report the analysis of the sighting. What did it mean? So the press doesn't have to buy in to extraterrestrials. They don't have to buy into to any of this. They simply need to do what the press, I think, is supposed to do, and that is report what's out there. And why wouldn't this make, and they don't have to buy into the lunatic fringe. If somebody cites something, somebody cites something. Why not report it? They don't even report the sighting. They don't report anything. You've told me about fairly recent sightings. Mr. Davenport, I haven't heard any of that in the press. Now, a number of years ago, there were mentions of that in the press. I mentioned the one time I was listening, I can't remember the year, it was quite some time ago, but you may be able to tell me what the year was by the confluence of the two events. One was sightings over New Mexico, and the other was a report that 2 people had died in New York City from what might have been psittacosis, and if it was psittacosis, it might have come from dried pigeon manure, so maybe we ought to kill all the pigeons in New York City. So I thought to myself, with that kind of logic, if I was out there from somewhere else watching us, I think I'd want to watch a little longer before I contacted these people. I hope that that's what comes of this. As I say, there are unidentified flying objects. I came here with an open mind. I'm not quite there yet that they're extraterrestrial, because I'm not sure how they would control things when the closest possible life, I'm told, is 37 light years away. Now, I couldn't imagine, my forebears couldn't imagine the iPhones of today. So clearly there may be travel faster than the speed of light. There may be ways to communicate that we can't begin to understand. But the phenomenon is real. They are here. There are thousands of reportings. And I will do everything I can. I think I have some credibility. I will try to do everything I can to convince the press that there's some interesting stories here. The story may be, this guy's really a wacko, isn't he? He's reporting these crazy things. But in any event, isn't there an interesting story to all of these sightings? There is something there. Why? Who has been successful in convincing the press that these are not reportable? It's supposed to be a free press, free country, the truth out there. Why isn't it? Thank you very much.
It's turning into a Senate hearing, where we give our views, and of course I'm guilty of that for the last 2 days. The next person to ask questions is Congresswoman Lynn Woolsey.
Thank you. More interesting information. There's no question about it. I'd like to just add on to what Congressman Bartlett said. It's not just the press that needs to start bringing this forward. It's our government, and we know that. Maybe if our government will listen and investigate. I mean, they're doing it somewhere probably, but if they bring it out in the open, that would make interesting press, and it would not be press libeled kooks, I don't believe. And I actually have questions, but I want to say, there's no kooks in this room, and I am so impressed with all of you, so thank you for letting me be part of it. Peter Davenport, you said that there's over 80,000 written reports and examples that you get. I mean, reports you get every year on your hotline and in your organization?
We receive probably between 3,000 and 6,000 reports a year. We have, I think, 86,000 reports accumulated in our database.
Okay, well, give us an example or two of what somebody would call about that actually resulted in incredible action.
Thank you for the question, Congresswoman Wilsey. I would go right to the Phoenix Lights case in response to your question. The most dramatic case that I've handled in my roughly 50, 60 years of investigating the UFO phenomenon. Again, the size of the objects was unimaginable by terrestrial standards. The triangular object that hovered for an estimated 5 minutes over the intersection of 7th Avenue and Indian School Road that night, again, this is March 13th, 1997, hovered there for 5 minutes. It subtended an arc of about 135 degrees from the vantage point of people on the ground. It was that large above their heads, at which time it was not less than 8,000 feet above ground level. The size of these objects by itself tells us that we're dealing with something extraordinary. That object was capable of hovering motionless for 5 minutes.
I'm going to ask you to talk about what came of that. I mean, so you discovered, you heard something, and it turned out to be something that people could see, and what came of it? I mean, so why did it matter that we knew this?
Well, it appears that a very unusual event occurred. It's generated multiple books, 6 videotapes of various objects that night were taken. It was an extraordinary event that went largely unreported in the national press. It occurred on March 13th. The first national article in the USA Today did not appear until Wednesday, the 18th of June that year.
Was anybody harmed? Did anything happen to Arizona because of this?
Not that I'm aware of. I think the full story is yet to be understood, and I'm not sure we'll be able to obtain the full story, but about 1,500 witnesses submitted written reports. That's pretty good evidence by my standard.
What did you do with those reports? Where did they go?
Many of them are on our webpage. I think probably 100 or 150 eyewitness reports are posted there. Many of them are in the hands of investigators in Arizona.
Okay, thank you. And are you still following up? I mean, you don't just hand it to the investigators and say, now it's yours.
Well, that is what I did in that instance, because the National UFO Reporting Center, technically speaking, is not an investigative body.
Right.
We're a conduit of information.
Okay, now to all of you, but you don't all have to answer if you hear the right answer from one of your colleagues on the panel. When it's not a UFO, okay, this flying object, when it's not a UFO, what is it?
I'll take that first. Any number of things, Congresswoman. In fact, most of us who try to do good work in this field approach it with surprising skepticism, because we no longer have the luxury of disbelief, so to say. It's been proved to us repeatedly in terms you could bring into a courtroom. We have to be particularly careful about not informing our examination. First, it's no secret that our government has produced flying aircraft that do not conform to the notions that we grew up with that are terribly advanced. And I don't have to tell the members of this committee that technologically, where we are at the highest levels.
So now, and it's your understanding that those technologies aren't common knowledge?
Oh, I think they're common knowledge in popular culture, but the specifics of the dynamics of these machines and what they're capable of, for most intelligent people would mimic a machine from, another planet or something. Also, if you're predisposed to the subject, or you're a believer, or you're looking for these things, it can be a plane coming at a certain angle. It can, under certain circumstances, be a reflection from the ground. It can be, a large assembly of balloons themselves that escape. There are any number of possibilities. Mm-hmm. The main thing is, to paraphrase our friend and colleague Stanton Friedman, the question is not, are UFOs per se machines of advanced technology from parts unknown? The question is, has one ever been? And for those of us that spend a good part of our lives looking into these questions, that answer is overwhelmingly yes.
And we feel pretty certain that the UFOs, and if they're manned or bodied, I don't know what's in them, if there is such a thing, they are coming here they aren't coming to get our technology. They're coming with advanced technology. They're that far ahead of us.
I don't think any of us assume these things run on coal, petroleum, or...
Yeah, right. Okay.
What it is all theoretical.
Okay.
I have been involved in this field of study for over 35 years, and I know that I have no idea of where they come from, why they're coming, how they propel themselves. Mm-hmm. I can make better educated guesses than many people, and I tend to shy away from colleagues who do tell me that they know the specific answers. For me, that is somewhat problematical, to say that you know the unknown definitively. There's only several ways you can. They told you. You read it in a book, you saw it in a movie, you dreamt it, it came to you in a vision. However, my feeling is we are dealing with an area that is the epitome of the unknown, and we have to
I have one more question, and I have to ask it of Linda because I only have a minute. Ms. Moulton Howe, explain a little bit further. I don't understand how these pieces and parts, tissues are used. Why?
A genetic harvest.
Pardon?
It's a genetic harvest.
To be used how? I'm not there yet. I don't get it. What are they doing with it? They're going to take it back to outer space and do something. What are they doing with it?
I think that the answer is very complicated. I think it involves, on a more sophisticated level, what we are beginning to do in our science with cloning. Mm-hmm. And if you are advanced and you can take genetic material and you can clone, you can probably clone anything.
So there's a chance, there's maybe the idea that we have parts of animals, parts of living animals that the aliens would like to clone because they're maybe stronger than what they have, or why do they want ours?
I don't have all the answers, but a harvest of tissue, there might be a reason for why specific pieces and tissues are harvested, not because anything is being done with the bovine itself. It's the genetic DNA. It's the DNA that would be used.
So it's not a religious sacrament, or it's not symbolic.
We're talking about medical cloning.
Could I just put
Yes.
in there to back up Linda there? I think we have to put things in perspective, and it goes back to addressing the question, your last question. Realistically, every UFO researcher in the world will say of 100% of cases, 95% of them turn out to have a mundane explanation. That's a generally accepted figure worldwide. Have a mundane, whether it be astronomical, misinterpretation, that's a generally accepted figure. But really, where we start to delve down is when we look at the 5%. Well, when you look at the 5% after investigation, you end up with probably about 3% of hardcore cases. Now, these are hardcore cases after investigation. Well, I aren't bothered about the 97%. And your remit here is not really to speculate, in my opinion, as to where and what they're doing. It's really to establish the facts. And the facts are very, very apparent from very credible people that we are demonstrating that this is a subject that needs to be addressed as on an evidential basis. And it's not for us to speculate really where they're coming from, what their agenda is. It's really to look at the evidence. This is a hearing to look at evidence, and this is what we should be doing. And the evidence in that 3% is what counts. And the media really need to look at the 3%, the cases that defy all explanation after investigation. That's what evidence is. Is there evidence that would stand up in a court of law? Yes, there is. If there was a plane crash scenario just outside this building and we all happened to be on a coffee break, we'd all be material witnesses to it. However, when we talk about UFOs, the media suddenly make us all crazy. And that is wrong, and this needs to be addressed. And the panel in front of me are the representatives that can help make that happen. We are relying on you to use your voice and experience to listen to the evidence. And that's all any UFO investigator wants. All we want is a level playing field. That is not a lot to ask in the world. We just want to present evidence.
But, sir, are you suggesting we listen and don't ask questions?
No, of course not. But in the limited time frame that we have,
I mean,
we
we're
have
not
only
experts
so
up
little
here.
time.
If we don't ask the mundane, simple question that
Absolutely.
the public is asking, you aren't going to get anything out of this panel.
No, I accept that,
Yeah.
but we're here
Yeah.
to look at evidence.
Thank you. We'll go
But
to
the
our-
evidence goes to implication, and that's what you're asking about. And the implication of all of this is most of the world is probably at the stage of pretty lights in the sky that form patterns or can be stationary and put beams down. And what I just presented to you in a brief way was just a tiny, tiny scratch on the surface of 33 years of my trying to understand animal mutilations and why, which goes out to 1,000 other branches.
Okay.
If the pretty lights in the sky and the beams for centuries have been involved with harvesting material from this earth, I don't know that there's any Homo sapien who can answer why. But there is no question in my mind or anybody who has investigated that we're dealing with advanced intelligences, with advanced technology that can fold space-time, sir. That's how it's faster than the speed of light. And that in so doing, that their focus is on what we as Homo sapiens have only begun to investigate, and that is the DNA, the genetic material, and that we're now finally doing experiments in the subject of cloning. It's a bottom line that what is happening on this planet, and it has for centuries, is there is a harvest of genetic material, plants, animals, and humans. Why and to what end is a very complicated story. And I think that what I had just realized, and you're asking me the question which goes to implication, is that the disconnect between the current world population of 7 billion and what is actually happening on this planet in relationship to other intelligences, the gap is so great that to address the details that are known and what our government knows is so difficult that right now the inertia of silence on the part of government agencies who have a great deal of information, let me guarantee you, that they feel that this is a subject that cannot be presented. And I do know that there was a high-ranking naval officer who told one of his lower-ranking officers who had seen a craft who was exposed to the photographs from Roswell of the bodies. The high-ranking authority, when asked by the low-ranking authority who had seen the craft, and asked the higher-ranking, when are you going to tell the people? And the answer was never. And the implication there, politically, is that we are now in the United States of America, where there is an unstated policy of total, complete silence for the foreseeable future because it is too difficult to change what has been known to something that might upend a lot of subjects.
Thank you. I'd like to turn now to Congressman Carolyn Kilpatrick, please.
That would be Congresswoman, sir?
Congresswoman,
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm easily corrected.
Thank you. Not to correct you, just woman here. I certainly want to appreciate and thank you all for coming again. Every day is a different day. This is the first day of the rest of all of our lives. How we use it, how we put it together, how we share and give back is what we're here for. So I commend you for your testimony. A lot of notes, a lot of work, and my mind is boggled. I think I want to ask you first, Mr. Hazelton, Royal Air Force, security, police, hundreds of incidents yet today. What is the position of the British government on UFOs? And is it similar to U.S., who are cousins, or is it something different, or do we do this in British? Do they speak? Tell me, what's the position there?
The bottom line is that there is the special relationship with America, and America is quite clearly the most secretive government in the world on UFOs. And it leads, their fingers are in every decent UFO report around the world.
I want to know about Britain. We know pretty
Okay,
much about
well,
America.
Britain follows generally America's lead on most things, and Britain does the same. They have been releasing over the last 3.5 years several batches of files, which are in terms of papers, hundreds of thousands of single sheets of paper. However, the majority of the paper that has been released is very low level. It's mostly correspondence. In amongst that, there are some very good cases. For example, a British case in 1957, Milton Torres, a pilot, US pilot, flying over Ipswich in Suffolk, England, and he was stationed there flying a Super Sabre. He was vectored towards a radar target, and he was ordered to fire his missile at the target. He actually got the launch codes. When he went to launch, it jammed.
Okay, stop.
Okay, in Britain.
Yeah. You don't give me cases. We got cases.
Okay.
I want to know what's happening in Britain. I want to know what's happening with
Britain
the military.
is very
I want to know what's
lame.
happening with the government.
The media is very similar as to the US in not reporting. It belittles the subject, and it's criminal. And there is very little or no difference in the UK to the US.
This is a world phenomenon that we're discussing.
Absolutely.
You all know it way better than we do.
Absolutely.
We've heard testimony now 3 days and read a month leading up to this, videos and all. Ms. Howe.
Yeah.
And it's really for all of you. And I think you ended your presentation on something like this. What and why is such a profound reality
Yes.
not being built upon, internalized? If I have my military who comes to me and tells me they've got data, experiences, and other kinds of things that this is real, other countries, I've been on elevator and in the hotels with others from Chile and Peru and everywhere else in the world, or many places in the world. When we already acknowledge that whatever it is more significant than what we have here, and obviously in Britain and some of the other countries. The why of it, your
Yes.
scientific data is outstanding. See, I think the answer is probably in a coalition of nations and not in our governments, obviously, because the governments know something we don't know and they aren't sharing it, and it could be critical and catastrophic for the human being.
Well, let me add a postscript to yesterday's presentation on Bentwaters. It's a major case. It involved dozens of military people on a very important base. I, for one, at least, have been exposed to information from two people that within 24 hours of the Jim Peniston, John Burroughs, and Ed Kovansak encounter with the black, glassy craft with the hieroglyphic symbols on it in the forest, that within 24 hours in the UK, the National Security Agency of the United States took over everything that was happening at Bentwaters.
They testified to that.
This is important because it means that within 24 hours, a decision had been made somewhere at some level between the United States and the UK that the United States would take precedent through the National Security Agency.
Okay, stop. We heard that. No, I'm not good. I don't know the scientific part of it. I'm just going to tell you the political and what we do and what things we know about our country and the world and our relationships with various countries of the world. You got to teach us something else.
Well,
wait, let me just finish my point, because don't give me that testimony we had yesterday. We all heard it, we got notes, and we got to read it and embellish it. I want to move it to the action phase. You came here to ask us to do something, and we got to know how, what, and why. Haven't got there yet, and maybe by Friday or next month, or as we move this over the next couple of years, we'll get closer than you've got in 30 years, and you're to be commended. What you have unveiled is something is there, that we're not alone. I'm still learning. I want to learn more about that, in fact. But as I learn it, the existence as we know it is being jeopardized. It may not exist next week, let alone 30 more years.
I was only going to your point about international versus the United States. It's my impression that the United States, for some reason politically, is carrying the weight of the disclosure. I don't know why, because other countries have bodies, have craft, have photographs, have physical evidence. But the United States, going back to World War II and decisions that were made, for some reason, it is this country that seems to have the pivotal weight in
What do you think that is?
Disclosure.
What do you think that is? U.S. is the, if it's not for real, it's perceived to be the power of the world.
And that's exactly the reason why.
And right. So we sit here in the power of the world,
but it's
with
loss
the
of
power
power.
not of this world, or we don't know how it is.
Do you think America wants to
Hold
lose
it, sir.
that power?
Hold it. You can't interrupt a congressperson. I will yield to you in a moment, though. I will, because I just want to. We want to get to what we need to get to, really, and how we get to make it something so that we can all live another 100 years, or thereabouts. So I'm going to yield to you, Mr. Hilton, in just a second, and you too. I don't want to. I'm just getting antsy up here. Today you all took it to, every day it's another level, woo, woo. But I hate how we trivialize this situation.
Exactly.
I hate the men with the horns and all that, and what my colleague read yesterday. That's been since day one. And I'm telling you, we know it's so profound.
Yes.
And so big, and so real. When you don't know how to deal with it, you trivialize it. So when people think that we're coming, you all have been commending us, we've all taken a lot of flack, and we're proud of it. We're servants of the people. But to come here and then hear this other crap, in my home paper as well, I don't even talk to them. Because you can't say conspiracy if you're a congresswoman, because they really think you're wacko. But there's something out here that's been coordinated from our leadership, not the president person, but the office and our military and our press. That's a national conglomeration that continues. And unless we can somehow step outside of that and build some kind of coalitions and work and pray and build and speak and teach, we're going to lose. And what will the world be? It might be those things they've been drawn for all of my life. I yield to Mr. Hayes for the rest of my time.
Before we continue, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
May I make a suggestion? You all, I witnessed on Monday what I thought it was an historic moment at the end when you were concluding, summing up the first day, where you all said, no, we should have congressional hearings. Now, for a ufologist, that's an amazing thing for you to say, and I appreciate that tremendously. But I think what I need you to do, realistically, as people with over 80 years experience, is to say that to NBC, CNN. So ring up your colleagues at 6 o'clock today and say, I'm calling a press conference collectively where all 6 of you say, we believe in you.
Point. Do you think that the press listen? We talk to the press for 10 minutes, 30 minutes. They take the 10 seconds that they want.
I know
That's
what
why
we're
it's got to be a
battling with.
people-to-people thing. It's not going to be from the press.
I know
It's
that,
not.
but we battle the press, and that is the principal reason why nobody knows this
We're in
subject.
a press club. Have you seen the article in any of this post?
Precisely. But why aren't they here?
They're here. They are.
Can I just add momentarily onto my colleague's thoughts? It's not so much that you're saying something on the record about your reevaluation of this subject based on the knowledge that you're acquiring here and in your readings. It's the cumulative effect of all of you and the people now serving in your positions that will make the change. But it must begin somewhere with people taking a stand like your good selves.
You believe it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to call on Congresswoman Darlene Hooley. Congresswoman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, all of you, for your testimony. It's been terrific. When did we start sort of this whole ridicule piece? Yes.
May I take that?
Yes, Peter?
It has become a research specialty of mine, and it begins literally the summer of 1947. For me, I began questioning this over 20 years ago. How is it that my saying to you, Congresswoman, I saw something in the sky the other day or the other night that I couldn't recognize, or did something that I had never seen, case closed. Why is it that in terms of 66 years of Western journalism, popular culture, attitudes and ideas about flying saucers and little green men, that you hear me make a simple observation and you're wired to think, gee, I didn't know Peter had mental problems, or maybe he's kind of gone mystical, or he wants to feel special, or he wants to perpetrate a hoax, or he wants to be on the Oprah show, or. In the words of the late Dr. Wilhelm Reich, evasion of the obvious. Why is it? How did that happen? It wasn't an accident. I spent years studying that first wave of media. I'm the only person you've ever met that has downloaded and read in order every single article the New York Times has ever published on the subject of UFOs, extraterrestrials, flying discs, etc. In order, repeatedly looking for a pattern of reportage. And it begins the week after the Roswell incident. The Times didn't even deem it worthwhile to make that first report when it was reported that a machine of undetermined origin had crashed outside of this town in New Mexico. They waited until the cover story had gone into effect. And I would say, as a non-statistician, 98% of the New York Times coverage, and I stress here that in 1947, even more than now, the New York Times was the flagship of Western journalism. It still is in print terms. The influence the Times exerted over the other news syndicates was marked. The Copley Syndicate, Hearst papers, all of the major American papers followed the Times lead as a rule. And the Times hit the floor with all four wheels spinning. Every coverage, and I will be happy to send you an unpublished paper on this if you're curious, anybody on the committee, was sarcastic, condescending, ridiculing, explaining away like a parent to a bad child. Almost immediately they start to trot out authorities, often unnamed, often very contemptuous of the subject because overwhelmingly they're astronomers and psychologists. You would actually laugh if you read some of these articles. They're breathtaking in their ignorance and pseudo-science. Now, what I did was I overlaid on that timeline of these articles several hundred authentic, fully vetted, declassified documents from every agency you can imagine. And I would say it's about a 95% rate as you go through these, where you see these silly headlines and phenomenally goofy excuses, and then you see Air Force starting in September of '47, Air Force intelligence, Army intelligence, CIA, etc. We are concerned. These are not Soviet. They may be extraterrestrials. By the way, 2 words at the time in 1947.
Okay.
And so on. And what happened was, it was drummed into the minds of editors, reporters, that this is the way this thing is reported. Now, again, I stress these are the nationals. The locals, as Peter said, have almost always had an inquiring mind and acted independently, actually searching for information. I cannot prove, I couldn't offer you a shred of real evidence of why I think this is and how it happened, but deductive reasoning, a lot of study, and common sense suggests to me that a number of key individuals in the Truman administration, either with the understanding of the president or not to preserve plausible deniability, either with the coordination of the study group that had formed around the president in 1947 or not, went to New York, to Boston, to Los Angeles to meet with people like David Sarnoff of NBC, the owners of the Times, the Hearst people. And one of several things passed. They basically said, we're a little concerned based on that old bugaboo of Orson Welles in 1938, mass panic. You know, everybody's worried about the Russians right now. The president would consider it a personal favor if you'd kind of toe the line on this and just treat it not seriously. Or, in some cases, possibly saying, because these were major players, these folks were power brokers and among the most influential people in the country at the time, that we need your assistance. It's your patriotic duty. Now, once that pattern was set into place, what reporter that picks up on the reality of this and wants to do a serious piece of reportage is going to risk their career? We all know it's a joke. Now, to a great degree, that pattern is still stuck in the major media. It is changing, but that, I believe, is how it began.
And one of,
Thank you. I think I have 1 minute left. Anyone that would like to tackle this question.
We've got a problem
And-
time-wise,
Okay.
a serious problem
All right.
time-wise.
I yield back my 1 minute.
Thank you very much. And I would ask my colleague.
I hope you make that up somewhere.
Yes, oh yeah. You know where we're going to make it up? We're not going to eat today. If we keep it up, we're going to have the food of knowledge, but not much more.
can I make just,
I'd like to ask my colleague if he could restrict his time. I'm going to wipe my time out because we've been liberal in letting the witnesses express themselves, and that's, of course, why we're here, for you to express yourself. But here too, since this doesn't work, maybe this works. When you see me doing that wind it down intelligently. Thank you.
can I make just a brief close to what he was saying? And that is that 1 year after the July 47 crashes, there was another one in Aztec, New Mexico, in March of 1948. And the editor of the Farmington newspaper at the time did receive, from all that we have been able to learn, did receive a request by somebody in the Pentagon to not report about what had happened, that there was distinct pressure put on to a local editor. And I believe that that is the way that the Defense Department and local media, there began, that was shortly after World War II. And so the population was less, and the local media were much, much more inclined to take some requests by the Pentagon.
Thank you. I now yield to Congressman Mike Cook, Merrill Cook, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Peter Davenport, you indicated you received about 86,000 incidents, I guess, over the years, about 3,000 to 5,000 a year. Your list here of 62, and I appreciate that you went back to 1936 on the first one. And I noticed that probably 55 or more recent, probably in the last 15 or 16 years. I take it this might be a top 62 hit list or something of incidents that you think? I mean, and so what I'm really asking is, what was the standard that you used for including these, and they are certainly interesting, events and sightings?
Thank you for the question, Congressman Cook. There were several criteria: the drama involved with the sighting, the degree of corroboration, the degree of verification. But in essence, I drew up that list as a distillation from the 86,000 cases for the committee's benefit to show you some of the more dramatic, well-founded cases that we have in our database.
And you, like others that have studied this, would probably say that a high percentage of the 86,000 that you've received are probably not credible. I mean, it doesn't take a very high percentage to make a really important case here. So
Correct.
I'm trying to get a sense of what you think would be a credible percentage of all those numbers.
It's very difficult to quantify that. I've attempted to do it, but the difficulty is, it is very difficult to know for sure, with 100% accuracy, what is a genuine UFO sighting and what is not.
Well, I think you've put together some very good work on sightings of UFOs. So I'm going to jump to the next thing. And until I saw the last statement, I was sort of accepting this. But I have to say, and it's not too different than the concern that I think Congressman Bartlett expressed earlier. You said here at the back, without indicating ET aspects of these sightings. Now, maybe there are some that you just didn't include in this list, but that it's a fact that we have, that this is ET, that ET is real. And I'm just asking you, how, well, let me ask you this. Isn't it a leap to say, okay, UFOs exist, as Dr. Bartlett has indicated, and then saying it's ET? I mean, aren't there other explanations for UFOs? Are there no other explanations? Is it the only explanation? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Probably not the only explanation. I have to say that because we don't have a definitive answer yet to what we're dealing with. But it is difficult for me to imagine that some of the craft and some of the circumstances that are reported to our center are of terrestrial origin, just given the flight characteristics of many of the craft reported to us.
In other words, probably in these 62 cases, you would say it's the best explanation. Is that what you're saying? And is that why they get included on the list, is if you think it's the best explanation for ET? Or you're just saying, hey, there was credibility, we don't know what it was yet, but clearly they saw something. It's very strange. I mean, you have some ET index that you're applying to this list, I take it, or you wouldn't have said that at the end?
Yeah, I would not have included those cases in that list had they not been of extreme interest to me. I am a scientist, trained in that capacity, and I would not have included those cases in that list had they not had associated with them good, solid, hard, objective
And
evidence.
as part of your scientific training, you are saying here that it's still a leap between a belief in a UFO and knowing, without a doubt, that it's ET.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say
you
more.
Said yes?
I would
well,
say
you said
more.
yup, but I want to make sure I hear this correct. And really, I want you to say what you truthfully believe and think based on your experience. Clearly, you've had a lot of time to think about this a lot, and you are obviously an impressively trained scientist.
I would characterize it not
stipulate all that.
not so much as a leap as a step in that direction.
Okay.
And if these craft are not of extraterrestrial origin, I have no explanation for them. Craft that can hover motionless for 5 minutes above Phoenix, craft that can accelerate at a rate so fast that it's reported from multiple witnesses their eyes could not follow the craft as it departed.
I understand the maneuvering that you're saying, and it's certainly the best, maybe, in your mind, best explanation. I'd like to go to Gary Heseltine, have to say that I'm particularly impressed with your list of sightings. And the reason I'm impressed is because they're from policemen. Every one of this is a pretty thick list, a lot of them. So I imagine the credibility on your list you would rank as certainly higher than what many people that collect data would indicate, or just, I don't want to put any words in your mouths.
No, you've actually highlighted something that I hope to be able to answer. And I think the real answer is that when I said to you before that the accepted figure is 3% after investigation, well, that's not really the end of it, because I would argue that in the high caliber witness categories, high caliber I would mean astronauts, cosmonauts, pilots, military and commercial, radar operators, sonar operators. In these very high caliber witness categories, the percentage after investigation would be much, much higher than that 3%.
Well,
I would hazard a guess that if you looked at military pilots with millions of dollars spent on their training, the percentage of error would be much reduced, and I would hazard a guess that it would be something in the region of 80% plus were accurate.
Okay, then I'm going to quickly ask you. Well, I'm not going to ask you because I only have a minute left, but I'm going to say certainly credibility of people like Captain Solace, who's sitting here in the front row.
Absolutely. I mean, that
the probably caused the United States Air Force to come up with filters over their ICBM silos is certainly going to be incredible.
Well, I think that's where we need to look at. When we look at collective evidence.
I'm sorry to cut you, but I know that we're trying. I'm going to ask Ms. Howe. Very interesting slides, very interesting. Nevada Proving Ground, Dugway, Utah. I'm from Utah. Talk about secrets. Let's talk about nuclear testing secrets. Yeah. Couldn't nuclear testing have a lot to do with these animal carcasses and the bloodless? Isn't that
Our first test was in July of 1945. There are mutilation records going back, as I said, to 1911.
Okay, good answer. Let me ask you this, though. The one thing that maybe I scratched my head on a little bit, your statement. Well, I scratched my head on a lot, I'll have to say that. That it absolutely is evidence of genetic harvesting. I mean, that may be your belief. That may be something that you say there's...
No, it's not
Are you
a
saying
belief.
there's no possibility it could be anything but genetic harvesting, what these slides are showing?
We're not in the context of belief here at all. We're in the context of hard physical evidence, medical evidence.
How that carcass ended up the way it was is what I'm asking. That has to be... You're saying that's proof? Absolute 100% proof? To the extent that the law of gravity is pretty much proven.
The next,
of genetic harvesting.
The next round of the hearing is documents, and there have been leaked documents from inside our own government in which the phrase extraterrestrial biological entities, with the acronym all caps EBES, has been included since at least a printing of what I think is a document that none of us have found any dispute over, the Psalm 101 document with a 1954 War Office stamp on it. And if our government, going back to FDR, which there are also leaked documents about the discussion between FDR and the Secretary of War, Marshall, after the February 1942, made the front page of the Los Angeles Times, the photograph of our artillery and beams going up to a diamond-shaped object, distributing some 1,417 bullets, and then having that discussed in documents by Franklin Delano Roosevelt with the Secretary of War, and that in those documents that have been leaked, it uses the terms, these were interplanetary, celestial, and that we were retrieving these craft because we wanted to examine them. That puts a context here, again, that would be before the war.
Well, I appreciate your telling me that. That's interesting to me. But you don't allow any of the wiggle room that, for example, Mr. Davenport seems to allow in terms of final conclusions. And that's certainly your right, because you've looked at these things a lot more than I have. I want to get the best information I can, as credibly put together as I can, to help, as I said, break down the truth embargo. That's what we need to do first. And maybe we have to do it a brick at a time. Okay.
I hope you enjoyed part 2 of UFOs and associated phenomena. And if you have additional information or experiences regarding today's topic, please feel free to contact me. And for more information on the citizen hearing, you can find links in the show notes. And if you've encountered something that you can't explain, you can contact me through email, voice message, or on our website. And all these links can be found in the show notes. Until next time, I hope you all have a safe and healthy rest of the week, and we'll see you back here on Friday as we uncover even more experiences involving paranormal mysteries.